very pretty.
Please don't.
I love you. It takes a lot of love for a person to do this.
Hey everybody, welcome to the PVD Horror Podcast. My name is Dave, and I am here with a special guest today, and we are doing a little bit of an untraditional episode, as we are going to be discussing a film that I would say, while it's not straight horror, is very, very spooky and definitely gives you some chills as you sit back and digest it. So I'm joined here today with director and writer Robert Kiviat. He is known for some previous docs like Aliens on the Moon and I Shot JFK, The Shocking Truth. But today we are discussing the Mandela Effect Phenomenon. So, Robert, thank you for joining.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks,
Absolutely. If you like all things horror and want to get the best horror news, interviews, and reviews,
like, subscribe, and ring that bell to follow us and satisfy all your horror
so
needs.
this is an interesting doc. You have a few guests on here who I guess you would say are kind of like specialists in the area of the Mandela effect, which I'm sure there's people here that might not even be familiar with what the Mandela effect is.
Well, do you want to take a shot at that? Should we explain
Oh,
it?
I'll try, and then I'll let you correct me. So the Mandela effect, in essence, is it's this thing where we remember something a specific way, but turns out that we might be misremembering it. And it's not just on an individual base, it tends to be more on like a societal base.
Right, a mass misremembering, or they really are experiencing a different reality. It's one or the other.
Okay. And that is definitely a part of this, where this doc goes. And that was the part that I was probably least familiar. I didn't know that there was actually like some pretty wild theories out there about why this exists.
Right. And of course, one thing that we want to make clear in the name of the movie, The Mandela Effect Phenomenon, coming out July 9 on digital everywhere, is that the phenomenon is proven. There are residual evidences that we show in our movie that we're very strongly stating that we think we could present to a courtroom if necessary, that something has physically been altered in our reality, such as the names of certain celebrities never were what they are now. They were originally one thing on a different timeline,
Right.
a different whatever.
Yeah.
Movies, scenes that we watched in the movie theater,
Yes.
you, me, a lot of people, you go to the same movie, let's say it was under your bed on a VHS tape, it somehow changed.
Yes.
No one came into your house. No one took out the movie Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, and took it and edited out, Luke, I am your father. Darth Vader saying that. We have James Earl Jones in our movie, the actor, literally who played the part, saying without a doubt, several different ways,
Yes.
it is the only way it ever was. Luke, I am your father. That was the line. He's walking around in our movie. You'll see, everyone will see, they use James Earl Jones as a character actor in the old comedy called 2.5 Men on CBS. James is giving the character in the movie a free voicemail or something.
Yeah.
So he says as he's walking through, what do you want? Luke, I am your father, or this is CNN. These are two of the most prolific James Earl Jones lines known in history, and he's confirming it. He's also confirming that in the script. He says, when they show me the line, Luke, I am your father, I wondered, how are they going to play that off? How are they going to tell the story? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I watched this doc and I couldn't stop thinking about it because I kept going, if these major ones, like in my head, I'm like trying to think of like smaller examples, because I'm like, if these major ones can slip by me, you can only imagine the smaller examples. And here's the incredible piece. I found this fascinating. I think that the reason why we talk about this so much in like with like film and in celebrity world is because that's like the most easily accessible examples for like a conversation, right?
Yes.
But there are even like a few thrown in there of like historical Mandela effects, including where the name Mandela effect comes from, which I never knew. That's incredible.
And then the idea that people thought that back in 2015 or so, there was a researcher, and she just happened to notice how many people thought Nelson Mandela died years ago, never came out of like the prison, and then really fought against apartheid, become African leader of South Africa. In their mind, that never happened. They remember seeing the funeral, people, mourning him, his wife crying. These are the kind of memories that are not just like, flippant little memories.
Sure.
These are people that are convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt. Another one that's pretty freaky, not in my world, but we'll talk about timelines mixing and maybe it confuses all kind of people. Bottom line, people think, many people, by the millions, maybe more than millions, who knows, believe that they watched the scene in Tiananmen Square years ago on television where the guy stood in front of the tank trying to stop the tank from coming, and the tank stopped. The guy got onto the tank and made friends with the guy, the military guy. They turned around. In the other people's memory or their own timeline, that thing ran the guy over.
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere. It was like horrific. Horror. Amazing. That's crazy.
That is crazy. It's almost like a plot in a movie where maybe the government goes and refilms and then just pumps that onto us to make us believe that this is the reality. And at some point in time, we'll eventually forget about what we actually saw the first time. It just feels almost like it couldn't be true, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, a lot of people say yes. I don't know what caused it exactly, but we did indeed look into some of the theories and evidence of it, and we can get into that. But that's really what our documentary, The Mandela Effect Phenomenon, is really saying to the world. Journalists have not done their job. People have not looked into this enough. Everybody tries to write it off as misremembering, and people are just nothing. No, we show the evidence that something clearly was one way before, and now, at least on this timeline, there are things that don't belong in this timeline.
Sure. Now, before we go into that, I have to ask you this question. How the hell did you get wrapped up in this crazy world of Mandela Effect Phenomenon and linking with these researchers and just becoming like engulfed in this theme? How did this happen?
Well, first of all, I know you mentioned a few of my shows, but I'm pretty well known for creating what the Fox network, really was trying to create back years ago. When the X-Files was popular, I was doing more of the specials about the alien autopsy, fact or fiction.
Okay. Yep.
UFOs, the best evidence ever caught on tape, 1 and 2. Prophecies of the Millennium, they were James Olmos. Miracles and Visions caught on tape. Ghost caught on tape with Jonathan Frakes again from Star Trek. My history has been to go take the mysteries that the public is fascinated about, that are not getting the right kind of treatment by journalists, people that should be looking into these things. And that's my credo. That's what I do. So when I came across the Mandela Effect and I realized J.C. Penney was always spelled with a Y, no E-Y at the end with me. I remember years ago being by J.C. Penney by a bus stop I took every day.
Yeah.
And every few days, it was J.C. Penney, no E-Y, no E-Y. When I looked into that, it just launched me into this entire investigation. Took 7 years. This just took 7 years to come into fruition.
Yeah.
Long time.
Now, let me ask you this. So I think that if I were to try to rationalize this, which I'm sure people do to you all the time, I'm sure there's always someone trying to debunk these timeline theories and all this, and give you some reasonable explanation. The thing that I think I could maybe wrap my head around the most and maybe offer you a suggestion of why would be the brands, like advertising. Because I think that I think brands and logos, they're constantly trying to maybe update, keep up with times, do things that are going to catch your attention. And maybe that would even go into, respelling, I guess, could be an example of that. But there's some other specific examples like the Ford logo, the Coca-Cola logo, which I'll let people see that in the film. But I mean, couldn't that just be rebranding, trying to keep up with times, making sure it's the catchiest looking thing that it could be? And then they just don't make it a big deal.
We not only did my staff, we were always debating, is there explanations for this? The ones that we looked at were the ones that had by and large, residual evidence that you could point to. Let's talk about Coca-Cola. without a doubt, I worked on the ad campaign in New York on the Coca-Cola campaign when I just came out of college years ago in New York.
Yep.
I worked with McCann Erickson, and I remember the art director's name was Paul Elliott. Okay. And we looked at that bottle every day for weeks and
Yeah.
analyzed it for weeks. It was Coca dash
Yeah.
Cola. There was no little dot above Coca-Cola. Not only that, there are so many examples that people have put out on the internet over the years that show that it was around at one point with a dot, with not a dot. But
Yep.
when our research and then the guy in our show, Jacob Israel, looked into it, it wasn't since 1930 that they had just a dash going through.
Really?
Now, that's nuts as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of things that we wish we had more residual evidence. The residual evidence we really do have is that you don't see the dash anywhere before 1930. So all I'm saying to you is that it looks like another dimensional piece of information came into this world, covered up the old thing, and that's not done by an ad agency or some marketing director at Coca-Cola. That's done by some kind of freaky, like you mentioned at the beginning of this whole thing today, some really scary thing is going on here. Because if it happened to Coca-Cola, what else did it happen to that we're not aware of?
Now, do you have experiences in your own life where you remember things from your past, maybe your childhood, something in your upbringing, and then someone has shared with you, maybe a family member that was involved or a friend that was involved, and they have a totally different recollection, or the timeline of when you remember it happening or where you were doesn't correlate with that person's recollection? Do you have that?
Yeah. Mine are more like I described, the J.C. Penney.
Sure.
The scene in I'm a huge baseball fan. So I remember Field of Dreams, a movie like it was yesterday, seeing the movie. And when you watch the opening scene and he says, and the voice says, if you build it, they will come. There was no he there. Let me tell you right now, I have been studying the Bible since I was a kid. I just, whatever religion, whatever, but I studied the Bible, both Old and New Testament. I'm very convinced that the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel talked about the end of the world, and I'm very concerned about nuclear war and everything else. There is no doubt that when you look at things through like that kind of a prism, that you're looking at those type of things. So when I saw Field of Dreams, I never would have associated the word he with anything other than God or something really wild. It would have been like, he? Whoa. But when the word they, it made so much sense. The players came out. One player came out first. Okay, you want to be a skeptic? But let's go back to what in our movie, what you see, we see the creator of the movie and the actor, okay, Kevin Costner. He says it right to the public. When the words they, if you build it, they will come, has become like a seminal thing in our society. The word he never is mentioned. And it's he. Only one time is they ever mentioned.
So we have to be looking at something that's either, like you said, there is some explanation that exists within timelines, within, parallel universes, something along those lines, or we're seeing this very interesting and fascinating cultural experience that causes us this heavy influence of when something's repeated by an individual that we know and trust, like celebrity, we tend to just go along with what that is. But that is really hard to buy into. It's easier to buy into because it's like real talking about people to people interactions, but it's hard to buy into to think that it's happened this many times and that it's so like the original source is so easily accessible that we wouldn't detect it, that the inaccuracy sooner, right? Like
these are the kind of debunkings, no offense, but these are the kind of explanations that don't hold up to the majority of Mandela effects that we looked at. We were like prosecuting attorneys. We're making the case to the public. We're not looking at every possible option. We're looking at what things make our case that 11 or 12 jury members are going to agree with. That's unexplainable. One of the things we didn't talk about much in our press so far, but on your show, I will definitely do that, is the ending of our movie.
Yes.
Where we're looking at very carefully what happened in Switzerland and that area when dignitaries from all over the world came to this celebrity kind of moment, this very big thing in Europe. They were opening up this tunnel right next to CERN back in 2016. There's Merkel from Germany. There's all these leaders, and they're playing out a demonic homage to CERN, that CERN is going to create opening portals, bring in the Antichrist, maybe end the world. That's right. While all the dignitaries are there, there's no doubt this was very well known by everybody in the political world. America didn't cover it. I think Russian TV covered it more than America.
Okay.
It is a shocking, shocking display. Hundreds and hundreds of people from CERN, we believe, were involved in this spectacle, which, by the way, they carved out this tunnel, very long tunnel in Europe, using the same drill bit kind of thing that opened up CERN's tunnels. There's such a weird thing about this event that happened in that area, and we make the connection because you look at the thing that's on the display in front of all these dignitaries. It's like a big TV, and they're showing you the story.
Right.
That CERN may have kind of set the clock back or maybe change time. It is so freaky that people need to look at this. Very serious.
Yeah. You bring up some really, really like disturbing things towards the end. That definitely holds it. Just the overall presence of demonology, of darkness in our society that we have now almost like embraced and made it part of our culture.
Embraced.
And it is very scary, right? I know there's a bunch of people out there, especially our audience, that embraces dark arts, dark themes, and and that's fine. And myself as well. I'm definitely a curious individual, but I think it's different when we're talking about making something that could be considered evil part of your lifestyle, right? You're like dabbling. It's one thing to be curious, but you're kind of presenting those people that are embracing it, living it, and how scary that can become for society.
Yeah, I think there's a cautionary tale to be told about people who dabble in the occult and how that could lead to other issues. And even the scientists at CERN are embracing occultism to levels that we've never ever seen, heard of, or even fathomed scientists would embrace. Scientists are not supposed to be that spiritual. How did the embracing of occultism and CERN become almost intertwined to an inexplicable degree? You can't explain it. How did occultism and CERN merge? And I think the famous headline in the Wall Street Journal that we show in our movie, literally when Stephen Hawking was warning everybody, don't do CERN. You could create problems. You could create black holes. It could affect the universe. Don't do it. When you crash particles together and try to recreate a Big Bang, you never know what's going to happen. Well, many people believe, and I may be one of them, that CERN could easily be the cause of the Mandela effect. And instead of, having a black hole destroy the world, we just moved a little bit into another dimension. Or another dimension kind of moved a little closer to ours. And it caused things that we don't even know the level yet. We're not even sure. So you got to be careful when anybody plays with the occult. I would recommend some caution.
I'm going to just throw this out there at you. This film releases in rather interesting time. We just recently had a horror movie, which most of our listeners will be very familiar with, called Late Night with the Devil.
It's making a lot of people in.
Yes, and it speaks on this exact theme. It's someone dabbling with the occult, and for fame and success, and how that ends up like ending for him in the end. Obviously, not to going to spoil it, but takes some turns.
Well, listen, I want to be very frank with you. We didn't put that scene lightly in our movie where you see Kate Middleton. Kate Middleton has a baby, and it's a big moment. She comes out with her baby wearing the exact same dress that Mia Farrow wore in Rosemary's Baby. That is a nightmare. How could someone have not said to her, like our guy says, Jacob Israel in our movie, maybe someone would have said, hey, Kate, maybe not the best dress to be wearing. Now, here's the other thing. The occult, the Illuminati, why are rappers? Why is LeBron James? Why are all these celebrities embracing the Illuminati occultism? What's all that about? What's going on?
Well, if you ask Cat Williams, he might be able to explain that, and because he's been.
I think Cat is a baby. I'm calling Cat out right now. Cat, you did a great job with the football player.
Yeah, Shannon
getting
Sharp.
all kinds of money and shit. Whatever. Sharon Sharp. It was okay. It wasn't great. Sharon Sharp. And Sharon Sharp made all kinds of money. And Sharon Sharp is talking about how much money he made with Cat Williams. Check out Cat going live fairly recently.
Okay.
He's timid.
Yeah.
He's afraid to talk about it. He's not talking about the Illuminati, not like I am.
Yeah.
He's not saying, calling out, hey, LeBron, why'd you make a movie? That's right. Why'd you get behind the movie where the final 20 minutes are all supporting the idea that the Illuminati is controlling the world and you're involved in it?
Yeah.
Why would you make that? No one's asking questions. How about this? A radio station has, I showed this to my kids like 10 years ago, right? I get my kids kind of into this a little bit, right? So literally, I show them Jay-Z night, Jay-Z on a radio station here in LA. I believe it's LA. And the woman's going, Jay-Z, there are people saying you're in the Illuminati. Now, Jay-Z, come on. I mean, are you in the Illuminati? That's crazy. What do you mean that's retarded? What do you mean? She's like, Jay-Z, you're wearing an Aleister Crowley shirt in these scenes. What are you doing? What? That's retarded. What? But no, she said, but Jay-Z, you're promoting Aleister Crowley, demonic ideas. Why are you're holding up your hand? Why are you doing that? He couldn't explain himself. He sounded like an idiot.
Well, there you go. So I love the message that you keep sending is, why are people not asking questions? And I think that is a huge issue with our society, is when we don't ask enough questions and we just go along and we follow through with things that we truly don't understand. So I love that you're presenting this stuff.
Absolutely.
Before we run out of time, I want to present some. You're probably already familiar with all of these, but these are all horror movie Mandela Effect phenomenons that I wasn't familiar with all these. I looked them up and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. The first one I found was Silence of the Lambs. And the phrase when he that everybody knows is "Hello, Clarice." It turns out he never actually says that in the film.
Life is amazing. I used to have a restaurant I used to eat in Pacific Palisades where I used to live in Malibu. Yeah. And literally he would eat at the same restaurant, Vittorio's, as often as I would almost.
Yeah.
We'd see Anthony Hopkins, one of my favorite actors, always there before I knew about the Mandela Effect.
Yep.
If I had that opportunity right now, I'd be saying to them right now.
Exactly.
How did you not say what the famous line is,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Hello, Clarice, right?
Yes.
I mean, give me a break. The movie, when you watch that movie now, it's weird. It's like,
yeah, I guess he says morning, and at the very end, he says, what does he say? He says,
nothing like the
Clarice. Yep.
Right.
The other big one is Dracula. Everybody quotes Dracula, and we always do it in the Bela Lugosi voice from 1931 of "I want to suck your blood." He never says that. Never.
There were commercials made for Count Chocula years ago, and they were parodying the same thing. Our movie will show people what we think is prima facie evidence. In other words, evidence in a courtroom like proceeding, that if you show this to a jury, the overwhelming amount of evidence, maybe not beyond the reasonable doubt, everybody in the jury, but enough people in that jury would agree we see a physical change to our reality. What changed? What caused the change? Was it demons? Was it CERN? Was it whatever we've posited in the movie? Doesn't matter. The bottom line is something changed.
Yes.
That's the key.
The last one I wanted to share, and the reason why I wanted to share this one too is because we've actually referred to this Mandela Effect probably about a year ago. And that was the first time Mandela Effect was ever introduced to us. We had a friend on, Nicole Matarese. She brought up the idea that Scary Movie 2 has a Mandela Effect in it that we constantly were misquoting. And there is a butler that has a small misshapen hand. And there is a scene where someone's hanging off a ledge, and he goes to give him the hand, and everybody remembers the quote as take my strong hand, as he hands him the small hand. That is not the quote at all. that scene was completely misremembered by an entire audience of viewers. He does reference his left hand being his smaller hand earlier in the movie. I think it's when in the mashed potato scene, probably. But he never says it at that part. And that was one that, like, when we heard that before, and then I got this opportunity to talk to you about Mandela Effect and watch this documentary, I was like, I got to do this because I am fascinated by it. It's absolutely fascinating.
You educated me. Before we end, I want you to know something. I think one of the things one of our main people, Mark Lefebvre, says in our movie is very important to leave you with today. When we talk about these Mandela effects, you bring up one from that movie, Scary Movie 2. When you bring these up, the natural feeling would be for anyone, okay, so if this did change, if these things did change, what else may have changed?
Exactly.
We don't even know. Like he says in the movie, Mark, you come home one night and your wife isn't Betty, it's Jane. You come home one night, you have a cat, not a dog. You whatever you say, I'm making up. You come home one day and you have 2 kids, not 3 kids. Where'd the other kid go? That's sort of where we're going. There's a show on right now on I'll plug it. It's fine on Apple TV. It's called Dark Matter. Dark matter plays up the entire idea that dimensionality is like a given and we have multiple realities. And if those ever merge together, what kind of nightmare? If I walked into the other reality where there's a Bob and I walk in and I see myself with my wife, but now it's not my wife, it's my second grade teacher for some reason, somehow, who knows what's going on? So forget that last line about who it is. But the point is, what's going on here? Actually, that movie's very interesting, or that show, I mean, because it shows what happens if you went back into it. If you went to a different reality by a machine this one guy made, you'll have multiple yous out there, multiple Daves, multiple Bobs. And if Bob 1 shows up in Bob 5's universe, what kind of shit is that going to cause, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think there was a Family Guy episode that had that happen as well.
See, predictive programming. There you go.
Yep. So one little funny thing I'll leave you with. So after I watched your documentary, I was visiting my parents and I had to like throw out all these Mandela effects at them. So, and then in order to like say it, I led them up to the quote and I said, finish this quote, Forrest Gump, life is like, and my dad goes, a box of chocolate covered cherries. And I said, wrong Mandela effect. You did not, that was not the quote whatsoever. But they were blown away that they also were misremembering all these quotes. And I just think that that to me highlighted like, this affects everybody. Like the fact that I can go and share this with my parents.
I'm glad you mentioned Forrest Gump before we do end officially, because Forrest Gump's a great one. With Forrest Gump, he's sitting on the bench and he's saying, my mama always said, life was like a box of chocolate. The line actually is, life is like a box of chocolate. David Letterman in 1985 at the Academy Awards, who literally is speaking to hundreds of millions of people about the entertainment industry, misquotes the actual line and says, what I remember it as a guy watching the movie, my mom has always said, life is like a box of chocolate, not was like a box of chocolate. In our research, so we didn't put it into the movie. A lot of times I leave it in like a pyramid or an iceberg, you only see the tip. But our research showed without a doubt in an earlier scene shot by Robert Zemeckis, the director, there is no doubt a scene where he's sitting there going, life is like a box of chocolate. So it's possible that in another timeline, creatively, that Robert Zemeckis decided he wanted to use the one with is, not was, because there was some thought about doing the other. And that's what I think may be occurring here. Another reality where a little different creative decision was made, somehow merged into this reality, somehow.
Fascinating. Actually hard to wrap your mind around that all this can exist, but it's great.
Nice talking to you guys.
Do you too? Do you have anything else, any other projects coming up that you want people to know about?
Yes. We're doing a very big dive into the idea of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. It's called Eyes Wide Open, and it's going to be very much looking at the demonic nature in music, what's happened, why Stanley was worried about the public getting aware of this issue. There may be an Illuminati controlling the world. Maybe that's why you're seeing all these symbols come up everywhere, and some of the other effects and reasons that movie is so seminal in our society. I'm also working on something that's kind of the counter to that. It's believe it or not, it's about the K-pop girl groups coming out of South Korea. And these girls have given a new version of music to the world that we've never really seen before, where they can dance and sing on stage in front of thousands of people. There are some secrets to how they do it, but the reason I'm doing that is to show people, as much as our own music and the Stanley Kubrick Eyes Wide Open documentary I'm planning to make, our music doesn't have to be that way. It could be wonderful. The biggest controversy about the K-pop girl groups, and they're fascinating, is, are they over-controlled?
Yeah.
Are they being a little somewhat trained like, like slaves?
Yes.
But they're not putting in demonic symbols.
Exactly.
Oh
Exactly. So thank you so much for joining.
Not yet, anyway.
You know what? Do me a favor. When you wrap up those projects, please come back and chat with us. I would love to have a little bit more time. Absolutely.
Also have a big UFO doc coming. It's going to clear up all this bullshit you've been hearing about on Capitol Hill.
I love it.
That's my core. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Stay true to who you are. All right. Thank you so much. July 9th, Mandela Effect Phenomenon. Everybody, make sure you check it out. Thank you so much, man, for being here. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.